Look at your table. There is something there that you add to every meal, and it actually has a history filled with blood. For most of human history, that white powder, sodium chloride, was not just a seasoning. It was power. It was money. It was life itself. And because it was life, it was also death. Based on Mark Kurlansky's incredible book, Salt, here is the story of how a simple rock taste caused wars, built walls, and decapitated kings. To understand why people killed each other over salt, you have to understand the biology. Before the invention of the refrigerator in the 20th century, salt was the only way to preserve food. If you had meat and no salt, you had rotten meat. If you had an army and no salt, you had a starving, dying army. Salt wasn't a luxury. It was a strategic necessity, like oil is today. And just like oil, if you controlled the salt, you controlled the world. Let's go back 4,000 years to China. The Chinese emperors were the first to realize that salt was the ultimate cheat code for infinite money. They created the first state monopoly on salt. They realized that if the state was the only one allowed to sell salt, they could charge whatever they wanted, and the peasants had to pay. You can't boycott salt. You die without it. This salt tax became so lucrative that it literally financed the construction of the Great Wall of China. Think about that. That massive dragon of stone winding through the mountains wasn't just built with stone and sweat. It was built with salt money. But this monopoly also created a brutal black market. For centuries, the history of China was essentially a cat-and-mouse game between the emperor's salt police and desperate salt smugglers. Fast forward to the Middle Ages in Europe. If you think Venice is just a romantic city with gondolas and overpriced coffee, think again. Venice began as a swampy refugee camp, but they had one thing: salt lagoons. The Venetians didn't just sell salt. They became the mafia of the Mediterranean. They realized that producing salt wasn't enough. They had to destroy anyone else who tried to produce it. In the 13th and 14th centuries, Venice fought a series of brutal wars, specifically the War of Chioggia against their arch-rival Genoa. This wasn't a war for territory or religion. It was a trade war. Venice would literally send their navy to destroy the salt pans of their competitors. They forced every ship in the Adriatic Sea to transit through Venice and pay a salt tax. The golden palaces you see in Venice today, they were built on a foundation of salt crystals and aggressive naval warfare. But if Venice showed us how to get rich with salt, France showed us how to lose your head over it. In pre-revolutionary France, there was a tax called the gabelle. This is widely considered one of the most hated and stupid taxes in human history. The King of France didn't just tax salt. He forced you to buy it. Every citizen over the age of 8 was legally required to purchase a specific amount of salt every year from the government at a price the government set, even if you didn't need it. And here is the kicker: you couldn't use that salt to preserve meat. That was illegal. You could only use it for cooking on the table. If you wanted to preserve pork, you had to go back and buy more salt and pay the tax again. This system was enforced by brutal tax collectors who would invade homes, searching for illegal salt. The anger against the gabelle grew so intense that it became one of the primary sparks of the French Revolution. When the people finally rose up in 1789, one of the first things they demanded was the abolition of the salt tax. In a way, Louis XVI lost his head because he got too greedy with the salt shaker. Now let's cross the ocean to the American Civil War. We usually learn about slavery and states' rights, but from a logistical perspective, the Civil War was a war for salt. The Southern Confederacy had a massive problem. They had plenty of cotton, but very little salt. And you cannot fight a war without salt. You need it to cure beef for the soldiers, and you need it for the horses. If horses don't get dietary salt, they get weak and die. No horses means no cavalry and no supply wagons. The Union, the North, knew this. They launched what was essentially a salt embargo. Union General William Tecumseh Sherman, the man famous for burning Atlanta, declared that salt was as important as gunpowder. He gave specific orders to his troops: destroy the salt works. They targeted places like Saltville, Virginia. They smashed the boiling kettles and filled the salt wells with debris. As the war dragged on, the price of salt in the South skyrocketed. Soldiers were eating spoiled meat. Morale collapsed, and the physical strength of the army deteriorated. The South didn't just run out of bullets, they ran out of the ability to stay alive. Finally, we arrive in the 20th century in India. The British Empire, learning from the Chinese and the Venetians, held a strict monopoly on Indian salt. It was illegal for an Indian citizen to walk to the beach, pick up a handful of natural salt, and use it. They had to buy it from the British and pay a tax. This was the ultimate symbol of colonial oppression, taxing a gift from nature. In 1930, Mahatma Gandhi decided to break this monopoly, not with guns, but with a walk. This was the famous Salt March. Gandhi and his followers walked 240 miles to the sea. On April 6th, he bent down and picked up a lump of salty mud. It was a simple criminal act, but it electrified the world. By making salt, he was saying, "We do not need your permission to live." That single lump of salt broke the psychological hold of the British Empire. It proved that a massive military power could be defeated by a simple, non-violent act of defiance over a common mineral. So, the next time you are cooking pasta and you carelessly throw a pinch of salt into the boiling water, pause for a second. That white dust built the Great Wall of China. It funded the Renaissance in Venice. It sparked a French Revolution. It decided the American Civil War, and it helped liberate India. It is the only rock we eat, and for thousands of years, it was the only rock worth dying for. History, it turns out, is incredibly salty.